On today's podcast, we'll talk about creating new tech for F1, the importance of getting the coffee order right, Top Gun, Life of Pi, and of course, George Lucas in love. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and GUI operator goodness. Make sure to check out the breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, the musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. I may or I may not take a break or two during this episode, but I promise that none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling! Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Margaret. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am Dave Comides, your host, and coming to you over the internet today to Los Angeles with a really celebrated focus puller, Dan Ming, who I've been trying to get on the podcast for a while, but of course he's always busy. So I was able to grab him on a day off, and he's been kind enough to sit down and talk with me. Some of his credits, but not all by any means, because they're quite lengthy. Judy, F1, Top Gun Maverick, Black Widow, Spider-Man: Homecoming, The Founder, Life of Pi. The list actually goes on and on. It's quite impressive. Dan, thanks for being here and talking with me.
Hey, how are you? I just wanted to throw out there right off the bat the notes that all the Marvel jobs for the most part are, that's how we worked, are like the reshoots from they shoot it in London or Atlanta, wherever, and then they clean it all up in LA. And
That's exactly
I
right.
and
I actually left some of those off because, like, the one that I think we did 2 back to back with Bill Pope, right?
yeah,
Thor
yep,
and one of the Thors and one of the Ant-Man. Yeah, because who
Ant-Man,
knows what
yeah,
those actually mean? Yeah,
yep.
gotcha. But there's still a lot of stuff on there. So tell me, what's your story? How'd you get into the film industry?
I went to UCLA. I was at the School of Engineering, and my best friend from high school went to USC Film School. And basically, I had always done photography my whole life.
Okay,
And, he always needed help. And I was like, yeah, I'll come help. And I basically, you know, helped a lot and really enjoyed it. It was a very different thing than engineering school. And I basically decided, like, oh, this is way more fun than being an engineer. So I would just do low budget movies over, 3 6 day week, $250,000 movies,
oh yeah.
whatever, Corman, whatever, or, over the breaks, and did little commercials, music videos on the weekends. And
So you're saying while you were in engineering school, you were doing
while I
this?
was in engineering school, yeah.
Oh wow! And
Because I was like,
did you?
I could stop going to school and then just
Yeah.
start working, but part of me was like, let me just finish this. I started it. I was an aerospace engineer,
Oh my
and
gosh!
I loved it, but it was hard. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be doing this, but I want to get my degree. So they're like, well, if you switch to any other major, you have to start school over completely because nothing transfers from the School of Engineering. So I switched to civil
Sure.
environmental engineering, which I found much more interesting. And like it's not like I didn't care as much. The pressure was off because I knew I wasn't really going to be doing it. And my grades actually improved drastically once I stopped worrying about it.
There you go.
So I
Sometimes that's the
graduated
way
from
it
the School of
goes.
Engineering at UCLA, but and then I went straight to work in the film industry. I was already in the union by the time I graduated,
I
and
have to ask you, when you say you worked down at Corman, did you work down in Venice in those
yeah,
catacombs that were down there?
yep, I worked down in Venice, and I just it was it was a great place to learn.
It was, right? And the people that you ran into were unbelievable. Like, the people that came out of there are just incredible. And I don't know if you had the thing that I had, but I would show up for a movie and I'd do a shot and then they'd like go, go down the hallway and make a left and go into that set and go do a shot over there. And at the time I was like, I get to work on 2 movies today. This is great.
Yes, exactly. And then like 20
Yeah,
years later, we're doing it with Marvel.
that's
You're like, oh, we
exactly
need a
right.
shot from this movie, and you're like, okay. Like, are you like, what is that? Moon Knight? No, Ant-Man. What are we working
Yeah.
on?
So what did you start out as a loader, or what did you start out as?
Yes. So I was my first job in the industry was as a producer's assistant on the Disney lot. I was
Oh,
an intern, and then over the summer they hired me as an assistant. And the assistants, are always, hanging out together. And like, one of the assistants was like, I want to do a short. So first thing I ever did was as an art department PA on for free on a short film. And they knew I was interested in camera. So the first AC got a call for like a paying gig, and he bailed.
okay.
And then the DP was like, well, all you do is just match the numbers on the lens with how far the things that the camera are pointed at.
That's
And I'm
all
like,
you
that's a
did.
really weird job, but all right. So I did it, right? And I did it, and whatever. And like, that's 5 feet, 5 feet, whatever. And then
Yeah.
he's like, wow, you're really good at this. And I'm like, what? I just did what you told me. And he's like, yeah, but how do you know that's 5 feet? And I'm like, well, that's how far 5 feet is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, but how do you know just from looking that it's 5 feet? And I'm like, I don't know, it's 5 feet.
I mean,
And
do you think
and
that some of your mechanical engineering sort of kicked in there,
yeah,
or whatever
absolutely,
made you
yeah.
want to
I
do that?
mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like our job, like how big things are, especially in civil engineering. You're like doing plots, and like you're looking at
Okay.
terrain and distances, and then it doesn't matter. Like, you're dealing with feet, you're dealing with meters, you're dealing with whatever. So like, I knew distances. It's
Yeah.
like
I
that's
love the
not what you
fact
go
that
to
they've
engineering school for, but it was like a
no.
shoot off of that.
Well, I love the fact that they threw you on the camera and the response was, "How do you know how to do this?" And you're like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It doesn't seem that that
Well,
hard."
the flip side to this
Yeah.
is that the DP, threaded the mag and did all the other stuff, but
Hmm.
that's not part of his job normally. So we had shot this whole scene, and the counter, I'm like, I think we're over the amount the short end says it is. He's like, okay, let's take it off. I open the door and there's no film in the movement. I'm like, is
Oh
this
no.
normal? And he's like, oh, I forgot to thread the mag.
Oh my
Because he
gosh.
didn't, because that was his job, because all I knew was like, I'm matching the numbers on the lens. I didn't know any of the other stuff at all. And I'm like, maybe you should teach me how to do that so
Yeah.
that you
Right.
don't have to worry about it. So we had to reshoot that scene. And,
Wow.
but basically the film had just run from one side of the mag to the other and not through the movement at all.
Oh
And I
my
didn't know anything about
gosh.
checking the gate. I didn't know any of that. So
Well, at
I'm
least
like,
it wasn't
okay,
your fault.
maybe I should learn some of this other stuff so that,
Yeah.
I could kind of at least make sure that doesn't happen again. And, and then you just kind of like, okay, I learned how to do this. I learned how to thread the mag. Okay, that's how you check the gate. And kind of like this stuff you don't really learn in school, especially like at 35 and stuff. You just,
No.
most of the stuff I learned for my job was from doing it and from being
So
taught it by somebody else.
did the DP take you aside and go, "This is how you thread it, and this is what you do"? I mean, did you learn it on that job, or did you go to a rental house, or
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you do?
no. I asked him to teach me, and he showed me, and I'm like, okay, I can do that because
Yeah.
I was very mechanically inclined, and it was fun. I'm like, this movement's really cool. Look at this. This draws it
Yeah.
down. This
Right.
holds
It
it
is.
still. I could see, and the beauty of film is it's very analog. You open the door, you can see exactly what's happening. There's
It's
no
so.
voodoo. You're like, okay, these things are turning constantly, but these loops, they grow and shrink as the film is being held in place. And then once you
Yep.
pull the pin, it just shoots down to the next one and it holds in the loops. The movement's moving steadily, but the loops are shrinking and growing. For the brief moment the film is held in place. And I'm like, oh, this is
It's
really
so
neat. I
funny
get
that you
this.
say that because I miss the analog of it all, and like how you could open the door and sort of see the magic in there. And I mean, I've said this before on here, and I talk to everybody. I bet you're in the same thing. That smell when you'd open up a Panavision camera,
Yeah.
and just like
Yeah.
and the
The
sound of the door
emulsion.
going, whoop, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's just all that stuff. It's
And then how it
fantastic.
sounds
Something's
different if like, oh, that there's the movement, the movement, the claws on it pushed forward. So that door, it just
yep,
sounds different when you close it because the pin is like out and you're like, oh, I gotta,
that's
make sure it's closed and
amazing.
all that stuff.
Yeah. So did you just start? Did you just immediately make the jump to being a focus puller right there?
Right. So
Or
I was a focus puller, and on shorts, and I did like super low budget movies. And then I was like, I realized that as a first, your job is also to kind of run the department. And I had no idea what anyone else did. So at that point, I I I loaded, I did like, I don't know, 2 or 3 movies as a loader. My
uh-huh.
first movie was a 6-day week movie where I didn't get paid at all. But you could do that back in the day.
Yeah, you could
Now you
because your
can't
rent was only
legally.
two.
But
Your
back
rent was only
then you
two
could
hundred
totally do
dollars.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm out of school. They're paying me $150 a day. And so I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I'm making
yep.
$750 a week. Like I literally don't know what to do with that much money. I'm like, oh my
That's
God.
exactly right. Yeah,
And and um and so, that I went back so I could learn like from the bottom up because as a first, you need to know everyone's job so you could run it, the department
yep,
properly. And
yeah,
and of course, the engineering side of me was like always there. So, the first AC was like, okay, here's what you do. Here's to do a camera report. You look at the dial, you round to the nearest 10 feet, and then you write it down. And I'm like, well, you don't have to make it easy for me. I can keep track of all the feed. You don't have to like
yeah,
round just for me. And he like
yeah.
looked at me for like 10 seconds and he was like, okay, all right. Like, why don't you keep track of all the feet? So I was like keeping track of every single foot. And then at the end of the day, I'd be stressing out. I'm like, I'm missing 12 feet of film. I don't know, I don't know what's happening. And like, so at the end of the week, I was like, I don't know. I'm making this like 65 feet short. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm 65 feet short. I don't know what to do. And then later on, I find out the production office is calling the first and like yelling at him because what I write on on my daily inventory goes in the production report.
Sure.
And so they can't get the numbers to match either in the production office. And they're like, what is going on here? Like, who keeps track to the foot? And he's like, oh, just let the kid, do his thing. And he's like, I just want to see what happens, really, because
Yeah.
he never thought to do that. And like, I have no idea like what's right, what's wrong. So I just assumed like he was just trying to help me out by rounding to
Yeah.
the nearest 10 feet.
And he was just
And then
wondering how bad it
after
would
that
go.
first
Yeah.
after the first week, he's like, look, you could round to the nearest 10. You don't have to keep track of every foot. No one keeps track of every foot. But 65 feet isn't bad.
No, that's pretty good. And also, I would imagine that's got to be the engineer in you because you don't when you're designing something as an engineer, you don't go, it's roughly 22 feet. Like
Yeah,
things are
no, for
very exact,
sure.
or else
For sure.
they
He's
don't
like,
work, right?
no one had ever even thought to think to do that. And so
Yeah.
when you brought it up, I was just like, I was kind of curious to see what happened, is what he told me.
Did I mean were you on any of those shows where you had like six different
Oh
or
yeah, yeah,
different
yeah.
formats and
We
six
had
different
red, we
things
had
and
yellow, we had blue, and they were all short
yeah,
ends for sure.
and they were
Yeah,
all short ends. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Yeah, those were the days. So
Those were the days,
how
but
long did you load for?
it wasn't long. I did 3 movies, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm ready. I'm gonna move up to seconding, because these are low budget films,
Yeah.
so it's like the package wasn't super complicated. Like as a loader, it's not like you're managing like manifests and shipping and all that stuff. So you learn the basics, and I was a quick study, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna second AC, and I just seconded I think one full movie,
Uh-huh.
and then I'm like, all right, this is great. I see what happens, but the second and the first work so closely together that really, in terms of learning, I feel like the loader in some ways is like more specific of a job. Like there are the camera assistants and you're all kind of in it together, but the loader is very much it's kind of its own department. In the UK, they have a central loader and floor loaders. They're paid
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly the same. Like there's no rate difference between the two, and I agree with that. Like the loader is just as important as the second. Like
Uh-huh.
it feels like everyone's like, oh, the loader's just an entry job, but I'm like, you need a really good loader for the department to function properly. And like that shouldn't be like a lower classification, especially in like a
Yeah.
very expensive city where it's like you literally can't really survive in a in an expensive place on a loader's rate.
Oh, I
So
see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
what happens is everyone tries to move up right away, and then you don't have super experienced loaders that stay
Oh, that
as loaders for a long time because they can't afford to, literally.
that's a really good point. I had never really thought about that. That's interesting. And so you don't get the people who have the experience like you used to because they just can't afford to do that. That's
Yeah, and
yeah,
so
that's
like
a
my argument has always been like, especially when it comes to better working conditions, shorter hours, I'm like, we can't really tackle these issues until like everyone can survive on not long days.
yeah,
Like when you're a PA, when you're a loader, you need overtime in order to like make ends meet. And
yep.
so like I've always been a proponent of like, hey, look, tech rate, it's amazing. Sure, I'd love to get paid more, but maybe like we kind of change the balance so that people who are at the bottom get like a bigger increase than people at the top. Because only when you
Wow.
start bringing all the rates more in alignment and closer to each other, then can you talk about like, hey, talk about like working conditions, working less hours. Like
Yeah. Oh,
it's
that's
always been the
interesting.
thing for me.
Well, the thing that every time we talk about, shorter hours, which obviously keeps coming up and coming up and coming up, one of the things that I always try to point out to people is, in the camera world, we make pretty good money compared to a lot of other people on the sets, and to the same thing that you're talking about, to tell those people like cut off, 3 hours, 3 extra hours because of overtime or whatever, that's a significant pay cut.
Yeah.
So totally agreed. Yeah, yeah. Let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah.
So did you then you started first thing pretty quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
once you went through the ranks there.
Yeah. I would say like for as a loader and a second, that was maybe 2 years.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so did you just jump into features or what were music videos or what were you doing?
I I don't this is like I just did whatever.
Yeah,
Like everything was it didn't really matter at that point what I did. I was always learning something. And so for me,
yeah.
that was what made it interesting. And you're just fresh out of college, so you want to
Sure.
travel. So like I did jobs as a camera assistant for a company that just traveled to resorts around the world and shot like videos for the resorts.
Oh,
And
that's
that was like
great.
a great gig, right? You're just traveling and you're, working and you're just at these resorts everywhere. Like that was an amazing gig.
Where were
Um,
some of the places you end up going for that?
like you're like Hong Kong and then a
Yeah,
ton in Mexico and a lot in the US
that's
and
fantastic. I love stuff like that, especially when
yeah,
you're a kid. Yeah.
exactly. And then also like, I have a lot of friends who kind of did documentaries too. And documentaries are the best for learning. I mean, so before I went to college, my two choices in college were like I play the trumpet. So it was either like
Oh,
School of Music or School of Engineering. Like those were my choices before college. And so, I was like I played jazz trumpet. That was kind of my thing. And so I went with engineering, which, they're very different things. But, you know, as a jazz musician, you do a lot of improvising, and your mind is kind of wired to like, okay, you have your chord structure, you have your bass structure that you kind of stick to, but you're allowed to like go off and then like come back and go off and come back. And so like I love
oh,
documentaries because you kind of show up on a documentary and they're like, okay, this is what we're going to try to do. And then sometimes things just went haywire and nothing went, you know, to the way that they would expect. But like as a documentarian, they're like, this is kind of interesting. Not what we expected, but totally interesting. And you just kind of
yeah,
follow the thread of what's happening. And
yeah,
like so like between like playing jazz and doing like a lot of documentaries, that really taught me to be like don't get stuck with the plan. Like filmmaking is very much prepping, prepping, coming up with a plan, showing up, and then it like frequently just falling apart, and then you just making it work with what you have,
yeah.
right?
Well, and
And
I think there's
so,
a lot to there's a lot to having an open mind and seeing, like you said about documentaries, seeing what's in front of you as opposed to what you expected, and going, I'm going to embrace this as opposed to fighting this, because that's where sometimes, and I think I'm sure you have too. I've found that in scripted stuff where suddenly just something
absolutely.
happens and it's a happy
Yeah.
accident, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And as a
absolutely.
focus puller too, because you have an expectation of lines people are saying and like who's saying what when. And frequently it doesn't go that way. Or sometimes somebody does something that, for me when I pull focus, I'm just looking at the frame. I'm just like living in the frame. And like if somebody does something that draws my eye, you know, like that's what I focus on because
Yeah.
that's what in the frame is interesting to me. And obviously I talked to the director and the cameraman about it because they're like, we just need the coverage of this person and we want to cut. So don't rack around, otherwise we can't cut, right? So you're always
Stop
within the
making choices,
structure.
Dan.
Exactly. Like they're like, we just need to,
Yeah.
we're going to need to change the pace of this. So we need, so like, you're aware of the needs, but sometimes they're like, just do whatever whatever you think's right. And it's
What
like
works?
in
Yeah.
those moments, like one take will be completely different than the next because of something one person does. Like a guy talks and then like you see that they're thinking of something and then the other person may say something, but the first person is still like, thinking about what they just said or reacting to what the other person is saying. And like in that moment, you're like, oh, that reaction is actually more interesting than what the other person is saying. So you'll stay with that. So it's like, it's kind of like, and every take is different because a lot actors will also switch what they do. So it's kind
Yeah.
of, one of the things I love about the thing is the whole process is like, as an engineer, you plan, you have a plan, everything's like you have all your pieces, but then the jazz musician documentarian side of me loves when things kind of fall apart, and then you just kind of you're like, okay, these are the tools I have. What can we do with the tools? And that
It's
that was
it's
like that on F1 too, because like on F1 we had a plan where we had all the cars, we had a car plan, we have like a schedule of the whole race. When certain things happen in the race, you have to show up at certain times at certain spots to capture those moments. Like you could be in the paddock, and then we have to be in the broadcaster's booth, and then we have to go to whatever the stand on this turn to capture this moment. But on the way they'll be like, oh, whoever is doing this over here, and we can like get our actor and slide it in with them. And so you're just like,
yeah.
okay, we still have to do all this other stuff. What resources do we have to kind of like divert over there to get that done? And
So I was obviously going to talk to you about F1, but since you brought it up, let's dive in on that. I mean, first off, that movie was, how long were you on that movie for? I mean, it went on for a long time, right?
we went on for a long time, but there was a lot of R&D and design at the beginning. So
Yeah.
total from beginning to end, it was a little over 2 years, maybe by a few
Wow.
weeks. Yeah.
And you, I don't,
Because there was the strike in the middle, and there were so many reasons
sure,
why as well.
of course. But and so you designed two systems for that, is that right?
We designed we designed a camera with Sony. We
Yeah.
designed, a pan head with Panavision, and then electronics to kind of support the whole system. And
Uh-huh.
then with RF films, we kind of designed a RF mesh network to kind of carry all the data wirelessly so that we could control remotely and integrate it all with each other. And in terms of like communication protocols and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then we had the
So,
video element on top of that too. So that's kind of
I
the
actually,
three
I
of
didn't
those
even think
four
about,
were designed from the ground up.
I didn't
And
even
then the
think about the
cars,
remote side.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
then we had to
so,
build the
so,
cars. They were built from scratch as well.
oh, so these were not Formula One cars. These were cars that you then rejiggered. They were built for this
Yes, they were
specifically.
actually Formula 2 uh, bases, and then we stretched. Mercedes actually built the frames for us, and so we kind of
Yeah.
stretched the Formula 2s a little bit so that they were Formula 1 length. And then in that extra space we had was the space that we kind of designed to build the gear. So what we had was Claudio had a Formula One car. He kind of picked the camera angles with Joe that they we wanted to achieve in
Yeah.
CAD, and then he kind of floated the exact camera angles on a CAD where he wanted. We sent that to Mercedes, and then Mercedes took that, and then we built the cars from the ground up with mounting points so that we could put
Wow.
structures on the car to get the cameras exactly where we needed, because there's nothing on a Formula One car itself where that you can mount onto. The
Yeah, of
point of
course
those
not.
are to get air over as fast as possible. And
Yeah.
so what we had is our cars had little hatches. You just remove a hatch, and then underneath it there were mounting points, and like we could build and we could build exact points exactly where we need it. And then we had the side pods, which are the aero pods, were hollow, and so we designed those to actually fit the gear. So first we had to design the camera, and then
Okay.
based on the camera head design, you know, we locked in the hole positions on the camera heads so that we could go to Panavision and be like, here are the holes, here is the size of the sensor. Let's design the pan heads using these dimensions and the Panavision motor and the Preston motors.
Yeah.
And then I would take the camera and talk to Sony, and then we're like, okay, so these are the communication protocols this camera is going to use. And then so I took that and went to our films and be like, these are the communication protocols. We need to work on our system to like have everything talk to each other. And so our films took that and started working on that. So we had all this kind of happening at the
That's
same time.
incredible.
And so my job was kind of to do systems integration, like to make sure, like if there was a change anywhere, to know how that would affect everyone else, because so that when we all came together, it would kind of hopefully work. And it was a lot of fun though, and so we
Well,
got
it
just
seems like you're perfectly suited for this because of your engineering background, and obviously you're technically oriented. But so tell me, the camera that you developed was basically it's just a sensor on the back of a lens, essentially, give or take. I
yeah,
mean,
it's
is that a simple
Claudio
way to
called
put
it
it?
sensor on a stick, but it was
Yeah.
basically a FX6 sensor
Uh huh.
that was had the E mount, and then they asked if we wanted internal NDs, but it would have increased the size drastically. So we did
Yeah.
drop in NDs because
Okay.
we knew that we would be using wide angle lenses, and to put a filter in front of wide angle lenses was pretty much impossible. And
Yeah.
so it was basically we need it small, it had to be full frame, it's 4K, it needed an E mount, and it needed internal filters. And so
Wow.
that was what determined the size of
Uh
the
huh.
sensor block.
And
And then the rear,
how big is the camera itself?
I mean, it's probably this big. It's
So
a square
it's
like this big.
like 3 inches square or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
So it basically hangs off the back of the lens, essentially.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It was as small as you can get it for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And
And then
and
and then so when we design, but we had to design all the stuff, and then all the electronics to support it, and then we had to go to Mercedes and be like, this is the amount of gear we need to fit in the car. So they're
did they
building the
think you
car at
were
the same
nuts?
time. So we did as much as we could in CAD. And it was like the CAD it's all very aerodynamically curved. So there's not a lot of flat
Yeah,
surfaces.
by
So to
design.
try to fit these blocks into this curved space was really hard to do in CAD. And so
Yeah.
at some point they were just like, we kind of don't see how exactly it's going to fit. So, we've given you as much space as we could. You're just going to have to figure it out. And
You
so
figure out the rest. Yeah.
so we figured out the West, and we did, but like it was very much to the millimeter. If something was
Uh,
off by a millimeter, you couldn't get a battery on or off, or it would rub against something else. And so
oh my God.
it was
I
very, it worked out. As I like to say, it's like it's going to work out because we have no choice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and the final product is awesome. It's great. As far as the Panavision, the what do they call it? The quick pan or the fast pan? What do they
Yeah,
call the
I
thing?
called it a Panapan.
Panapan. I
Yeah.
like that. I mean, so basically, was the idea that he came to you and he said, "I want to be able to basically pan as fast as they're going by a wall back around"? Was that the genesis of
Exactly.
that?
Well, Joe and Claudio were like, okay, Top Gun was all static. All you could do
Yeah,
is just send the plane off and then just wait for it to come back.
yeah,
And on F1, they're like, we want to be able to, monitor and operate and see everything in real time.
yeah.
And but they're like, these moves are very linear. They knew like it was going to be hard to do. So they're like, let's just make a panhead. There's no need to actually tilt in any of these shots. These shots are
Yeah,
all so fast from point A to point B, there's not going to be any tilting. So
yeah.
by getting rid of that axis, it really simplified the build of the head because it's basically a gear and a
It's a
motor
gear,
with a
right?
thing
Yeah,
on it. Yeah, that's all it is.
yeah.
As simple as possible. And we just had to make sure that it could take the G forces and take a
Well, that was
beating.
my next question. Was that an issue, or I mean, is that? I mean, obviously you take that into account, but is it one of those things that you take into account so much and then you put it on and see what happens, or can you figure that out ahead of time?
Yeah, you can because like the mechanics of it are easy, and you can kind of previs how camera panning would look in like Studio 3D or in a visual CAD environment.
Uh
And
huh.
so for me, it's like I knew just from experience that, if you take a corner fast enough, if you don't tape the lens down, that force will force the focus element to move, or that force will force a head to move. So
Yep.
one of the reasons why we picked the Preston system is because the Preston motors are always powered. When you're not
Sure.
panning, the motor doesn't move.
It's
With a lot
locked.
of other systems, when you're not panning, it goes to sleep. And so you could actually hand turn it. So like if you
I
use a
got you.
system like that, when you go around a corner, the force is just going to make the thing move. You have to continuously power the motor. It's just as important to move it as to make sure it doesn't move.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
that was one of the reasons why we used the Preston system. And also we had to pull focus. And so the idea was like, well, we have a motor driver. Why don't we just use one motor driver to do focus and pan? And so it was kind of also a design choice for simplicity and for having less components.
Huh. I mean, what the stuff you guys pulled off was amazing. Um, uh, Away from the technical, tell me about just shooting F1 races like that. I mean, because the thing that I was, as I was watching it, I was thinking it's got to be fascinating because to the movie, you're the most important thing. And to F1, you are clearly not the most important thing. So, I mean, you guys were down on the tracks and in the pits and whatnot.
Yeah, we were the 11th team basically. Like I feel like we were like the test run for Cadillac. Like we had a
Yeah.
garage on pit lane. It was the Apex garage, like at Silverstone, the first year we were between Ferrari and Mercedes, and then there was an Apex garage. And it was built out. It looked amazing, because it was like a film garage. So like for us, it was like it's got to look cool, and like that
Yeah,
was
of
all.
course.
It had to be realistic. Obviously, it had to like
Yeah.
have all the elements of a functioning garage, but it didn't actually have to 100% function as one. We could make sure it looked cool as a primary thing. But so we had garages. We had like our little hospitality suite. We were pretty much embedded on the race. And, we had our cars, going in and out as well. And
Yeah.
it was really a
But wait,
unique experience.
when you say you had your cars going in and out, but they're not, I mean, they're not in the race, obviously.
No, so we weren't allowed to share, there was at the end we did a little drive with some other teams for, the final race. But
Uh-huh.
that was like literally after we had shot everything, and they're like, okay, if something happens, we got everything we need already.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so,
Exactly. Yeah.
but also it took that long to like to gain trust and to gain like part of our job was not just to get what we needed, but to make sure we didn't get in the way of the show. Because
Yeah.
as big as our circus was, it was like nothing compared to what F1 is. And so
That's why I asked.
we
Yeah.
would have our huge layout, in the inner track area, and then it would just be this tiny little postage stamp in a sea of like a whole bunch of other things. So, but
And how many of the F1 races did you guys actually shoot?
I think we went to nine. I mean, we
Wow.
went to nine different tracks, some multiple times.
Yeah.
And then we also had Daytona as well, which was
Oh,
the
sure. Yeah.
24-hour
Yeah.
race. Yeah.
That's
And
and were you filming scenes during the race, like in your area there and whatnot?
absolutely. So we would have the race schedule,
Yeah.
and we would, because the only time you have full crowds are really during, not even free practice so much, yes, but like, qualifying,
Dur-
the actual race, maybe FP3, the
Yeah.
third practice, that's when you had the crowd. So we were trying to maximize what we shot with the maximum amount of crowd in the stands. And so what they would
Yeah.
do is like they would have, you know, an F2 race, and then, there would be a window where there was no other track activity, so then we would get our window to like slide in our cars to drive on the track while the crowd was still out there, and we would shoot our footage, and then like another official F1 event. So if you looked at the race calendar, like our track slots were on the schedule of the day. We Because F1 was very much part of the whole process and involved with it. So we were scheduled with their schedule, and you would get notices like, "Hey, there's filming. Like, we know
Yeah.
about it. Just, they're here for us, we're here for them." And so with F1's blessings, we were there, and we had a lot. Like, we got to do things that some of the other teams and even some of the broadcasters were like, "We don't get to go there. We don't get to do that." And
Like
like
what?
on year two, well, I mean, it's like going filming in Park Fermé. So at the end of the race, all the cars go to this area called Park Fermé, and then they get scrutineered to check, like, plank wear, weight, everything. And so,
Oh, just to make sure it's like making
yeah,
sure they were legitimate and they weren't doing something they shouldn't have. Okay.
exactly. But we,
Gotcha.
we had a scene in that moment. They get out of the car and then get weighed and all that. And so we're out there filming with a very small crew, but they're like, "Hey, just so you know, if you like bump a car and break something, you're going to disqualify that
Oh,
car from the race."
oh
Because
my gosh.
before it gets scrutineered, if there's
Yeah.
damage on it, then we assume that that damage was not, it was done. But
Wow.
it's like they're like, we can't bend the rules, and so you have to be super careful. And like it became an issue later on the second year where like, you know, they're like, "Oh, those the F1 movie guys were doing this last night." And we're like, "Well, what are you talking about?" And it had people had figured out, like, if they said they were on the F1 movie, they could get to go places where they normally didn't.
Oh.
So people were actually using
Oh,
the
geez.
F1 movie to try to gain access to spaces they weren't supposed to, that weren't actually part of the film. So,
Wow.
but that's how much, like, you know that's how much F1 allowed us to kind of integrate with them. Like, we got
That's
to go into the
incredible. What an
broadcast areas. We had a
experience.
team capturing the footage from their cameras uncompressed before, because the way F1 works is they get their footage and it just gets compressed and sent to the UK, and then it's streamed out from the world, from Biggin
Okay.
Hill in the UK, every single race all around the world. So
Wait,
there's
because UK is the F1 like headquarters or something like that?
exactly, their
They're based
broadcast
there?
center
Okay.
is in the UK. So every
Oh,
race
okay.
gets streamed out of the UK. There's just a link to the UK. And so there's not there's really no period where the footage exists uncompressed. So
Yeah.
for certain cameras, Joe, the director, would coordinate with F1, and we had a team that was embedded in the broadcast tent that would capture certain angles uncompressed, so before it got compressed and sent out
Before.
for so that we could use it in the
Wow.
movie. Yeah.
That's I mean it's kind of unprecedented. It sounds like for something that big to be able to be that part of it. I know I found it very funny because I got a text from David Emmerichs one day, and David's been on everything, and I mean he's doing Avatar and whatever, and he
Yeah,
texted me and he
yeah.
goes, "You're not going to believe that." I think he was in Florida with you or somewhere, but he got called in to do one of the cameras. I forget
Vegas.
where.
We brought him
Yeah,
out
oh
to
Vegas,
Vegas.
okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
he was so excited because he was in the pit area for the F1 thing.
yeah.
That's yeah. I would imagine that everybody and their uncle was trying to get on this job in some way or another.
Yeah, I mean, but we had a pretty decent team in the States, because with
Yeah,
Daytona and Florida and Vegas, it was it was fun. It was
that's
it
great.
was
What an
and it was
experience. What a,
it was a great experience for sure. And
yeah,
From just
yeah. Now,
from just collaborating with Sony and with Panavision and with Apple, and
yeah,
it's that everyone was enthusiastic about it to the point where like you got people collaborating in ways they normally don't. Normally, everyone's very walled off and like very
yeah.
protective of their, IP. And in this case, everyone really pulled together to just make it work, not just as individuals, but as companies, F1 and Sony and Apple and they were just like, what do we need to make this work? And everyone went out of their way to do it. It was great.
That's that's very cool. That did. I mean, did Brad and Damson do? Did they actually do driving out on the track?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they absolutely did a lot of driving. And we were saying
What a
at
dream.
the end of the second year, it's like, oh, maybe we should reshoot the beginning of the movie because they were much better drivers at the
I'm
end of the
sure.
second
Yeah.
year, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
that's amazing. Did you ever get to go out?
no, because it's not like Top Gun where like there are two seats in the jet. It's like there's
Yeah.
only a
Okay.
pilot and driving the
Yeah.
car, and
I
that's
sort of
it.
figured, but I had to ask. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, we did early tests because we are like early on, like the very first test, we're like, well, let's test a two-seater car where, the operator's in it just in case
In the back.
things
Yeah.
go south. And it was not pleasant for the operator. Like,
Well, I was going to say the vibrations alone have to be ridiculous in something like
yeah.
that, right? I mean, I
It's
don't know
like
how
you're
you.
just trying to keep your head from not falling off your neck, let alone
That's
operate,
exactly right. Let
So
alone operate. Yeah, that
so
seems like a
it
bad
was
idea.
it was really, really hard. And the same thing on Top Gun. I did get to fly in a jet on Top Gun when we were doing the proof of concept. And, you know, trying to do anything while you're subjected to those forces is it's doable, but it's not necessarily pleasant.
Yeah,
It's like,
and well, the other thing is, it would seem to me is maybe you can pull it off, but it's probably not necessarily repeatable, or only if you're lucky. So that sort of throws that out of the window.
exactly. And
I
then with
mean,
F1, the other issue was like, we sometimes had three or four cars on the track, and each car had up to four cameras, of which two are
wow,
operatable. And so,
yeah,
sometimes you had 20 cameras going at the same time and like four operators.
holy,
And so there's that you can't, and also the cars are going like, 150, 180 miles an hour. There's no chase vehicle that can go that fast. There's no, like, having another car on the track isn't, it won't keep up. It's not
yeah,
safe. Like, that wasn't an option. Like, we just had
yeah.
to operate out of a central fixed base and just make sure everything went there and then come up with a system so that we could control everything from there.
So I got to ask, with that many cameras, how many feet of film? Well, it's not feet of film. How many minutes did you shoot?
Oh,
You
I
know?
think, I mean, I forgot what the number was, but they said that we definitely set the record for amount of hours of footage generated. I don't
I
know, it was
would
like
I would imagine it's got
two
to.
thousand
Oh my!
hours or
And
something like
just
that.
keeping track of all that, I can't even. You must have been happy you weren't the
Exactly.
loader.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a lot of media cards, but it was all about being organized. Like the
Yeah,
the Venice footage was all very straightforward. It was all normal. And then when you had, the cars, like, yes, you had a lot of mags you had to keep track of. But,
sure.
we had a system, and, we just stuck to it, and
Yeah.
it it, it all worked out. So we
So because you brought it up, tell me about Top Gun, because I mean you were out on these carriers, right? I mean, are you are
yeah,
you are
yeah,
you
we spent a
are you
lot of
going out
time
there
on
for
carriers.
are you going out there for like days at a time and weeks at a time, or are you just
Yeah,
going
I
and
mean,
coming?
I think we had like 3 deployments of 2 weeks each
Yeah,
at sea. And it was, you lived in the place you lived with the sailors and where the sailors
yeah.
slept. And
Wow.
it was definitely just, you were just doing, your full immersion.
Yeah, that's amazing. Harhoff sent me video of I think you guys getting shot off of one of those
Catapulted. Yeah,
carriers in
yeah.
a plane. Yeah, he put the camera up there, and actually he sent it to me, and I was like, "Did you ever consider that this camera was just going to get thrown thrown to the back of the plane or whatever?" And I guess I don't know how you had it mounted, but
I would
that seemed
say,
like
yeah, the first time you do it, like you're like, oh my God, like I gotta, make sure to keep. But I'm like after the first time I did it, I was like, oh, you okay? Because on a COD, which is the onboard delivery planes, you're facing backwards when you
yeah,
get catapulted. So you go like this when you're getting catapulted. So
okay,
I'm like, well, if I put the phone on the back of the seat in front of me, it's just gonna stay there.
it's going to
So
stay there.
so my second catapult is when I put the phone right there, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I think the
Don't
physics
worry
are going
about
to
it.
work out for us,
Yeah,
and then if
yeah,
not, let's find out. And so everyone's like, "Okay," and it worked. It, like I let go, and it just stayed there on the back of the
that's
chair.
awesome.
And then on the
That's
third flight,
great.
everyone took out their phone because like, okay, Dan tested it. Let's just film.
So he must have been that must have been on the second or third flight that he did.
Yeah.
I mean, do you of looking at your resume? I mean, you've got movies in there that are dramatic, and movies in there that I would call like this that are action or whatever. Do you have a preference for those, or is it a different if it's a different job for you?
It very much is. Like, I do love a good just narrative drama. It's nice it's nice to not constantly have the noise of the logistics of the department and just kind of enjoy just what's happening on set.
Yeah,
On Formula One, very much, I would say for me, I only remember pulling focus for a few difficult shots on Formula One in terms of like remembering my memories on set. Like most of my memories from Formula One were all about logistics or about the
yeah, I can imagine.
technology or about like
Yeah,
fixing this or doing that or like, doing manifests, shipping. That was just a big logistical show. But on a drama, you can just kind of really focus on what's happening in the frame and what's
yeah,
happening. It's not that I don't on a movie like Formula One, but there's always something you're thinking about at the same
yeah,
time because it's on Formula One you devote as much attention to the shot that you're doing, but you also know that right away the next thing you do is you're gonna have a camera somewhere else with, a crew all set up and you're just gonna run over like on so Silverstone. So we also used Ronin 4Ds a lot on
oh
Formula
yeah,
One for just because for what we were doing, we weren't allowed to set up sticks and a head and all that. We had to do a lot of stuff in spots where we couldn't drop an anchor in any way. And so, like, an example would be like in Silverstone, we filmed the national anthem with Brad and Damson in the front of the grid. And then we had a shot where they walk along the grid to the car, which is at the back of the grid. So we filmed the national anthem, and then we filmed them with all the other drivers heading to their cars. And then on the way, we had to film an interaction with Brad and a journalist.
hmm,
And so we would do that a few times. You see, if you look at people filming us from the crowd, you see us running back to reset and then filming. And at the same time, they're like, you have exactly, 5.5 minutes to shoot this shot, 6 minutes to shoot this shot. By
wow,
this time, you have to be at the back of the grid. They have to get in the car. And then we have to clear the grid because the cars are going to leave. So at Silverstone, the
yeah,
first time, our cars were on the starting grid. And if you look at the broadcast for the start of the formation lap, we're actually on the track behind all the cars. Just a few of us filming the cars pulling
oh
away,
really,
which was a story
wow,
moment, which they're like normally nobody's allowed on the track. with the
Yeah.
cars. And so we were there, and in the story, what happens is all the cars leave, and Brad's car sits there and waits. And so we're there. All the cars leave. Brad's car is sitting there waiting, and then they're like, "Okay, let's clear the track." And then, well, as it happens, is those cars need starters to start the ones we had,
Yeah.
and the car had stalled, and so the car wasn't leaving. And meanwhile, all the F1 cars are on the track
Are
and they're
going
doing their
around the
lap.
track, right?
They're going
Yeah.
around the
Yeah.
track. So they're like, okay, you guys have exactly, whatever, 1 minute, 27 seconds to get this car off the
Oh,
track before the cars
geez.
come around. And so, but there's a plan B, right? So they open the crash gates on the side and we just all push the car off into the
Push it
pit
out.
lane into the FIA garage. And that was plan B.
Yeah.
And we did it. But like every single step along the way was planned out, how many minutes we had to shoot what. And then if something went wrong, we had to go to plan B. And so everything had to be planned out. And you were there pulling focus while people are running around, and you had to focus on that in the moment. But at the same
Sure.
time, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh God, we have 2 minutes to do this and we have to do this. So the
Wow.
moment we're done with this, you had to know exactly what to do and just go do it. You didn't have time to like think, look at a schedule and be like, okay, what's next? You just had to know the whole
Yeah.
sequence and just execute. And
This
that
may
was
not
kind of how F1 was.
this may not be an answerable question, but is there? I mean, that's a lot of pressure, right? And I mean, I think having worked with you, you're someone who is very sort of mild mannered and sort of let's just go 1, 2, 3 and whatever. But is there anything that you can pass on to anybody who how you deal with pressure situations? Because like as you were explaining that to me, I'm getting anxiety, and I'm a fairly like mild mannered guy as well. But it just seems like that's a lot, right?
I
Is
mean,
there
but it's like
anything?
doing a live show, right? It's the adrenaline of doing
Yeah,
a live show, or like
yeah,
the unexpectedness of doing a documentary. It's, you have the plan and then you just have to make it work. And so
yeah,
if something goes wrong, you don't get to be like, oh, wait, guys, I need a moment. You just have to be like, okay, and that's why I tell people, like, you, as a focus puller, to do a certain shot, like a push in on somebody, something that's simple like that.
yeah,
Like, you need to know all the ways how to manage a push in on somebody. It's, you can, there are people you could just stare at a monitor and do it and get it done. There are people, you put marks on the ground, you do a push in, you do lasers, you could have a second AC off on the side doing a count. You
hmm,
could, you could just know the geometry of each stick of track and kind of use those as beats. Or like sometimes what I like to do, like dolly grips are very consistent. Like sometimes they'll do the move in, 6 steps each time. And then so I will take the move and break it down to 6 chunks and then base my move on him. That way, if he speeds
uh-huh,
up or slows down, I'm always in sync with the camera move because he's the guy moving the camera. And so,
sure,
and so it's like in the situation where you do a push in, marks are great until like suddenly you have extras crossing, right? And you can't see your marks. Or like the second AC starts doing a count and he loses track of a count because he can't see a mark. And, it's like you have to be able to like, or like you're pulling focus on monitor and the battery dies. You don't get to just be like,
yeah,
oh, sorry guys, you just gotta, you grab your handset and you just run next to the camera and you keep going. And
yeah,
so it's kind of like the job is to get it done. And so by knowing all the different techniques to do a certain task, when something goes wrong, you know that you're like, oh, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do that. Right. So it's not stressing about, am I going to get it done? It's just like, I have the tools. These are all the things that can go wrong. And this is how I would deal with these things in the case. And you just go with it and you just do it. You
yeah.
just execute. You don't think
Well, and
about like,
I think one of the things is commitment, right? Where instead of going, well, I don't know if I should do this or I don't know if I should do that, is you just go,
yes.
nope, this is the new way we're going, and I'm committing to that. And it's the same with focus pulling. It's the same with operating. It's like if you hesitate, it's definitely not going to work. So you got to
Right.
just go, nope, this is what it is, right?
Exactly.
And
And sometimes you whiff it, but you
yep,
commit, you know? And sometimes you
yeah,
get magic from that too. Frequently not,
Absolutely.
but sometimes you do, right? So,
Well,
but and
hopefully the
then
ones that
when
make it
and then
on
when the director's like, "What was that?" You're like, "My bad." Like,
my, yep, yep,
you
yeah,
just say,
or
"I did it."
yeah,
I
or
went for it and it didn't work.
or my favorite is, oh, you that's not what you wanted. I'm sorry, I thought that's what you wanted.
That's
That's
great.
completely on me. I apologize, but I honestly was doing what I thought you wanted, and of course that's bad. We're gonna do it the other way. Yeah, but and then you get good at dealing with the aftermath of it.
Yeah,
Did
exactly.
you? So you started out pulling focus on film, though, right?
Yes, 100%. It was all film.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
were on the knob, and now do you pull off a monitor like most people do, or you?
Yes, my primarily a monitor, because also it's like, like frequently you end up with lenses that are very vintage and the
The
marks
vintage
aren't
thing.
necessarily what they're supposed to be.
Yeah,
And then also is like as part of the thing transitioning to digital is operators frequently no longer have the best view anymore. Before it
don't.
was a coordination between, the focus puller and the operator, where the operator is giving the focus puller feedback. But now it's like, you know, and especially with younger operators, I hate to say it, it's like they're not looking for focus. They're
They don't
just
have
worried
to,
about the
right?
frame. And so
Yeah.
as a focus puller, now it's completely on you. And
Yep.
so if no one else has a good view, you have to have a good view because no one else is, the DIT actually frequently is your backup as a
Yep.
focus puller. But
Yeah.
but ultimately it just comes down to you. And so for me it's like I need a monitor because especially on a wide shot. For me, I think it's more wide shots than tight shots. It's easy to see if something's in and out of
Absolutely.
focus on a wide shot, but if like you're shooting something that's going to go to IMAX and you're looking at a tiny monitor and it's not quite there, you're not going to see it until it goes into a projection and you're sitting in the
Yep.
theater doing like the final checks and you're like, oh, that's soft, like that
Yeah.
lens was cold and the back focus shifted or whatever, or it's like you. So for me it's like the things I worry the most about are wide angle lens wide shots. Like I try to get a 4K feed and
Uh-huh.
check that it's in focus, because if you're like in the cold and the back focus just moves just the tiniest bit amount on a wide lens, that's going to do a lot
Absolutely.
of
Well, it's funny because
throwing off
operating
face.
wise, it's wide angle lenses are I think the hardest thing to do as well because you just can't hide anything there.
No, you can't. Especially
So
like
of
a
course
little like this,
a little
and
off,
somebody's like,
yeah, yeah, a little off angle and forget about it,
yeah.
or off level. And do you think that? I mean, do you think it's changed the way that you pull focus? I mean, I know obviously you're talking about having to be that much more on top of it because of the what you're seeing and what I can't see anymore. But has that changed the job for you?
Um, yes, but like so I did a lot of music videos
Okay.
and I worked with a DP Chris Probst and a director Joseph Kahn,
Uh-huh.
and we were very trusting of each other. And so when it came to like say, talent close up for like the song, like frequently I'd just be like, can I just hop on the camera and pull my own focus? Because it's not just about keeping the artist in focus, it's about, like if they do hands, they're going to lips and eyes and
Yeah.
stuff. And so
Yeah.
I was used to, and also with documentary work, frequently you're just out there pulling your own focus. So I was actually
Yeah.
very used to pulling my own focus while, looking.
Okay.
And like that was kind of, so when we went to, the F900s and, F65s or whatever, it felt second nature to me. I'm like, oh, this is just like what I do in the eyepiece. Like here's a knob. I'm looking at a
Oh, I see what you're
frame.
saying. Okay. Yeah.
Like
So you had a
I
transition
had a,
almost.
yeah, it's like I had a good idea of looking at three-dimensional movement in a two-dimensional plane already, just from having
Yeah.
done all that stuff.
Huh.
And
Interesting.
so and so for me, like pulling focus off the monitor felt very natural. Um, but yeah, it's just more stuff, It's like you have a monitor, you have the transmitters, you have like there's a lot more baggage
Yeah.
that comes with it. But ultimately, like also you don't get rehearsals anymore. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you may not get marks anymore. It's like,
Nope.
okay, just kind of know the geometry of the room, be like, okay, the back wall's 15 feet, so I don't have to worry like they're gonna go farther than that. This table's over here,
Yep.
and so you don't get to have the discipline of rehearsals and marks. You don't get to work with Tom Cruise every day where he's gonna just like hit the mark exactly
Every time.
right
Yep.
every time,
Yeah.
And so it became more about just winging it for better and worse, and which is fine with me. Like I've always, again, it comes back to like, the music, the documentaries, the all that. It's like the ability to just go with it. Because if the actor's feeling something, they want to do something, like that's their job. They should be able to do that. And like
Absolutely.
I've been on shows where the DP, especially on the lower budget shows, where the DP's like, I want to shoot anamorphic, I want to shoot wide open, I want to shoot film, and then it becomes, that was a hard show, but it became about the focus as much as it was about the performance, and that I
Yeah.
didn't think was great.
No, no.
And
I
so,
totally agree with that. Yeah, yeah. I did a thing a while ago with it's funny when you said that, it made me laugh. With vintage anamorphic lenses, and I would frame something up and the DIT would come in and you'd go, you can't put them that high in the frame. And I'd be like,
yeah,
why? Because it's
yeah,
not
yeah,
resolving up there. And I used to
yeah,
go, can you do me a favor? Can you draw circles around the
yeah.
areas of
Circle,
the
like,
frame that I
like,
can use? Because it's just like,
exactly.
what are we doing? And
It's
I
like, yeah,
get
but
it,
custom ground glass for each frame with like
yeah,
circles
yeah,
and
but he'd
spots.
come over all the time and be like, "You can't put them all the way to the side like that." Really? But
Yeah,
that's a great frame. I know, but it doesn't resolve. Anyway,
yeah.
what are you going to do? You said
But
something
also that's
earlier
because of
about,
format sizes too. Like lenses were
yeah,
designed to cover certain sensor
that's a good
sizes, but
point.
they're being used for sensors much larger than they were originally designed for. So they're like,
Oh,
"Oh,
I
the
had,
lenses covers
yeah,
the sensor," but I'm like, "Yes, the light hits the whole sensor, but optically the lens is not designed to cover the whole
it's
sensor,
not designed
So
for that. We're pushing this much farther than it was ever expected to. You said something earlier, which made me think about. You were talking about, when someone's talking, and then that the person deeper has another line, but there's something going on in the foreground, and it occurred to me. I mean, first of all, my favorite thing in the world is when I'm on a show and the dolly grip and the focus puller and I sort of have that connection to where everybody
yeah,
trusts each other, and just
yeah,
if something is happening,
yeah,
one of us is probably going to go there, and then you're seeing the
yeah,
focus go and you go, what is it? Oh, I know what and everything works.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
do you ever find that there are certain actors that, like, you'll have focus on and you almost find it hard to take the focus off of them because there's always something going on with them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two reasons for that. One is because, there are some actors who love to play and to try different
Yeah,
things. And so you're like, oh, what's he gonna do next?
yeah.
And then there's some actors where you're like, okay, that's number one, and I'm just gonna keep focus on them because they're number one. And
Sure.
like you just don't focus on them, number
I'm
three.
not going anywhere
Number
else
one's
unless
there.
I'm told to. Yeah, sure, sure.
So
Yeah,
you just
yeah,
have to know like the expectations for each situation.
yeah,
But absolutely. And then it's like, usually it's a shorthand. I'm like, I'm go to the operator and like, you want to play on this one? They're like, yeah, let's just see what
yeah,
happens. And so it's like
yeah.
sometimes I see something compelling and I see them going for it, just the slightest movement, and I'm like right there
Hmm.
with them. And then sometimes it's like I'll see it and like it's happening in the frame that exists, so I go for it. And they're with me. They don't necessarily have to do anything, but that leads to something else like
Sure.
unexpected. So
And then,
yeah,
well, like I said earlier, happy accidents, right?
yeah.
What's the hardest part of your job at this point of your career?
Um, well, I mean, it, one of the joys of not film is knowing right away when something's in focus or not, and not sitting in a room, looking at dailies with everyone else and
Yeah.
finding out like, oh, that wasn't good.
Oh God.
Um,
Yeah.
so for me, focus pulling is less stressful, not because it's easier, but because you can
Feedback.
go to bed knowing exactly where you stand.
Yeah. Okay.
But But like for me, like I'm a little bit nutty where it's like I like the complexity and I like the
Yeah.
challenges. Like for me, it's like if something is easy, I get bored. And easy means different things. Like a show could be technically not difficult, but very interesting because of like what you're doing or like the performances. Like, but you know, the hardest part of my job right now, honestly, is being away from my family.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
so tell me about that. How do you deal with that when you're on a show that's 2 years? And I know it wasn't 2 years away, but it was coming and going and coming and going.
yeah, it was, it's like the girls got to go to England for summer vacation, 2 years in a
Yeah.
row.
Yeah.
It's like I try, we try to make it so like they see there's upsides to me being away that way.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's not easy, but it's all about balance. It's like when I'm home, like I'm home. Like I'm trying not to like deal with work. It's like you got to leave work at work and home's got to be at home. And my wife knew what she was getting into. Like I proposed to her, she said yes, and I left the next day for Life of Pi to like I flew off the next day. It was like, and she we have gone, we had been together for quite a while, and she had visited me on like so many sets in so many cities,
Yeah.
and so it's like, yeah, but it takes two, It's, I do as much as I can, and she does as much as she can because, she worked too. It's not like it's
Yeah.
not easy. Like this is
Yeah.
not, as I like to say, is like you really want to start the business when your overhead is not high. Because if you do this job because you need money,
No.
you're gonna hate it. Like none of
I
like
also think,
I love what I do so
yeah,
much. And the fact that I can actually make money doing it is just a plus. But
I
if
was
it,
going to say, I think that's the second thing that you, because I talk to people about it, and it's like, if you don't absolutely have a passion for this is the wrong business for you. It's too hard. And it
yeah,
used to be, it was easier when you and I started, you could sort of stumble into being successful or whatever. And not to say that you can anymore, but it's
right.
just, it's too hard. It's got to be something that you can't not do.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff I did starting, it's like, working for nothing, working for free just to learn how to do something.
Sure.
You know, I couldn't do that now. Like I couldn't afford to do that now, first of all.
No,
But
no, it's
but
exactly right.
when fresh out of college with no overhead, living with like two other guys, in an crammed in an apartment, like we could afford to go and just and enjoy the process of learning how to do what we needed to do without sweating about the fact that like, oh, we have to, you know, pay for this and pay for that and pay for like,
Yeah.
it it is a job, but it doesn't feel like a job.
That's yeah, that's the best way to put it. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, uh, so if you're working with a newer operator, I'm sure at this point you probably don't work with newer operators that much just because of the things that you're working on. But what do you as a focus puller look for in an operator that like, that you go when someone comes in that you don't know and you go, this is a good operator because X, Y, and Z.
Right. Well, first thing I like to do is the buzz test from the film days where,
Oh, I gotcha.
we'll do a rehearsal, I'll do it right. It'll be sharp, and then we'll do it again and I'll just be off by like an inch or something and see if I hear any feedback. And then
Okay.
like if we get another rehearsal, then I'm like, okay, this is going to be obviously soft. And if they don't say anything, then I'm like, okay, I know that I have to like it's on
I'm on
me
my own.
to yeah, I'm on my own basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and I learned this from getting fired from a film. Like the only job I've ever been fired from early in my career was we did a push in on a guy and I did my marks and I was like, is that okay? And he's like, yeah, it's perfect. Just do it again. I did the same thing every take. Dailies came back. It was exactly soft, the exact same
Same.
way every take. And
Oh,
and then I would look in the eyepiece and I realized the diopter had been turned all the way and pinned to the end. I'm like, oh, like what's going on here? He's like, yeah, it doesn't quite correct all the way. And I'm like,
Oh
well,
my
you know, we
God.
could drop in a diopter so you could see what's
Yeah.
happening, right?
If you had
And
told
so
me
like,
that.
yeah, I wish you told me that. And so, and so I was let go. And my last thing I did when I
Oh,
left was pull him aside and be like, hey, get a diopter, put it in there. If another first gets fired, they're gonna figure out it's not me, it's you. And so
yeah.
like at
Yeah.
least do yourself and the next guy a favor and and yeah, the guy who replaced me worked with that DP for, decades afterwards. But like he must have taken my advice. So now I have the bus, that's number one, and that's not so much a thing anymore because of film. That's like
No.
very much a film thing.
Yeah.
Um, like at this point in my career, it's all about who I work with. Like I go to work with, you know, people. The job also is great, but the people, like it doesn't matter how crummy a screenplay is or where you are. If you're with the right people, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fun.
Hmm.
It could be the coolest sounding movie in the world, but if we were with a bunch of jerks, then it's just gonna be miserable. And so it's very much these days about who I work with in
Uh-huh.
terms of like just the process and the collaboration and the trust and just the kindness,
Do you have any, because you've worked on so many, you've worked with huge actors. Some are easy, some are hard. Some you've worked with before, and you work. Do you have any thoughts for operators on how to interact with those people, especially the harder actors? The easy ones, I always like to say, you're working with Tom Hanks. It's easy. I mean, it's
yeah.
just it is. But not naming any names, of course. There are some actors out there who are tough to work with. And for operators, you have any from your experience? Do you have any thoughts on how to deal with that?
Yeah, that's the thing with being an operator. It's really, you are kind of the pivot point between the DP, the actor, the director. You're like in the middle of all that. And so,
Yeah.
you know, as an operator, you really have to be able to read the room because it could be the same actor on a different day, and you just have to be a completely different person based on, some actors are method, right? And so if the actor is in a scene where they have to be a jerk, they're probably going to be a jerk with you. And you just can't take it personally. You just got to understand, like, that's their process. That's their, like, for
Hmm.
me, like, I try to be pleasant and even keeled and consistent so that no matter, even with the actor, like, they know, even though I may not know what to expect from them, they'll know what to expect from me. So if I say a pleasant good morning to them every day, regardless of who they are that day, like to them it's not a surprise. Like they're like, this is like consistency, they can work with that. If you try to like be too mercurial and switch yourself up, then actually I feel like it adds like more chaos to everything because like it's an actor's job to act, not our job.
No, that's a
But
great. Actually,
you know
I've never heard anybody put it quite that. It makes perfect sense, and I think hopefully to some extent I do that as well. But the consistency of that makes perfect. That's a really well described aspect. I like that a lot. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to, I love what I do and I, love the people I work with. And so for me, that's how I like to run the set. Like,
Yeah.
and also in terms of like getting hired by other people, there's so many people out there who are good at what they do. And so like if you're somebody that people want to be around, then you have a leg up with against the people who are not quite so pleasant to be around
Hmm.
because there's so
Yeah.
many people who are great focus pullers. Like, how do you pick? And
Yeah.
so it's like you want to surround yourself with people that you want to be with. That's just human nature.
Have you ever had a situation where well, maybe where you got fired there was, but well, I was going to say where you completely failed and it just you didn't pull it off. I mean, that situation that you mentioned actually wasn't you, but you took the to fall for it, unfortunately.
Um, I'm sure I have. I
You don't
mean,
have to bring it up. The reason
no, no,
the
no, no.
reason I ask it is I'm
No, go
trying to
ahead.
think of it. It's well,
Yeah.
first of all, it's good. It's good that you have to think this hard of it. But no, what I'm always wondering is, I think we all have those points in our careers where either we get fired, and you mentioned, that even though that wasn't your fault, or you legitimately get let go because you're not doing a good job, you didn't do well, or you just completely screwed a shot and you've got to get back up and do the next shot. And I'm just wondering what the mentality of is, how you sort of squash down that I'm not good enough, because
Yeah,
I
so
think we
the
all have that on
first
some level.
thing you do when you make a mistake is you own up to it right away. You
Yeah,
do not
yeah,
drag it out. Like if you're Lincoln, for example, doing a shot, Lincoln, Steven is directing, it's a shot. I'm with George Billinger is operating, and Tommy
great
Lee Jones
operator.
is giving
Yeah.
this speech in the Congress. And, we shoot it, it's a long lens. I go to check the gate, and, I check the gate, and then I look at my handset, I look at the lens, they're not lined up. I'm like, when did they
Boy.
get not lined up? Like, I didn't know. So I'm like, George. And George was like, it looked good. So number one is like, I should have trusted George in retrospect. But
Yeah.
second of all,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, what if it was soft? So I said, I'm really sorry. I had a technical issue. I think something was wrong. And, and Stephen was like, what happened? And I tried to explain what happened. In retrospect, I should just said like, I screwed up, right?
I screwed up. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
ultimately, like the best people in the business will respect you more if you just say, I messed up. Like they don't want excuses. I just be
Yeah.
like, I just screwed up. I need another go, and then you go for it. Like if you put it off, like then it adds up. So what we did, we reshot it and then went to dailies. It was fine. Like I
It was
did not
fine.
need to call an audible. But
Wow.
if it wasn't fine, then we would have to reshoot the scene, right? And so like it was a
Yeah.
really tough decision in a really tough situation. And if I were if I were in the same situation, I'd do the same thing because there's nothing worse than having to make production pull everything together to reshoot something than doing another take. Like
Yeah.
on every level, that's the right thing to do. Other
Absolutely.
than not making a
But
mistake in the first place, right? But
what? Yeah. Well, of course. But again, I mean, that sounded like you didn't even know if you made the mistake or if it had happened. If it was just a
right.
technical. I mean,
And
it's
then
hard
and
to, even though
George was like
you're
and
responsible.
George was telling me like, Dan, I think you were fine. I
Yeah.
didn't see anything. And I know George and I love George and I should trust George. But like for me, I'm just like in that
I,
moment, I
you got
was
to bring it
like,
up.
what
Yeah.
if I'm wrong, right? What if,
But the question is then when you go to do take two or whatever the next take was, do you mentally have to sort of tamp down? No, I know how to do my job. This
no,
was an anomaly. Like,
because in my mind, the issue wasn't like, did I buzz them? Because I thought I
yeah,
pulled
that's
focus
true.
perfectly. The issue was like, oh, were the numbers on my handset aligned with the numbers on the lens?
It's a technical
Right.
thing.
So
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
process
yeah.
thing. That's a setup thing
Sure.
that you have to be
But
consistent to make sure it always
it
is.
is a great piece of advice. Is if you just got to own it, because putting it off or hemming and hawing and it's what I tell operators is like when they look at you and go, "How was that?" Which of course they don't anymore because they're seeing a better image than we do. But that's another story.
Right.
It's good or it's bad. We need another one, or it's I mean, there's no sort of like, well, it was kind of this, or maybe we could have. That's where you
Right.
get
They
into
just
the
need to,
trouble,
but
I
the
think.
thing is, like, I will frequently have great operators ask me because they will call an audible and not necessarily blame me if I need another one, right?
Yeah.
Like
Uh huh.
Peter Rosenfeld was great. He'd be like, Dan, how was that? And I'll be like, and he'll be like, you know what? I think we should do another one. And he
I need
doesn't lay the
another one.
blame.
Yep.
He doesn't, he just says, we need another one.
Yep.
And then because he has that relationship, they're like, okay, let's just go again, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's helpful to, again, if you have an issue, go right away. The operator, go right away, to the director. And, that happened on Judy too, where, we were doing a push around and ended up on a close up of Tom and there was a moment and we're shooting on VistaVision, so this was filmed.
And
And there
this
was a
is Judy. That it's not out yet. This is you
yeah, it's
just
not
shot
out
this,
yet.
right?
It's a
Yeah,
Tom
yeah,
Cruise, Alejandro directed it, Chivo shot it.
Uh-huh.
it's gonna be. I am so looking forward to seeing this film.
Oh,
It
cool.
like I'm not sure what to expect from it, but I just know it's gonna just be amazing, just because of the performances and this is just the way we shot. It's gonna be something special.
That's great.
But like another thing directors love, especially like someone like Steven who's already cut the thing in his head, is like
Sure.
just to say it's soft is not enough. You have to be like, oh, I buzzed them on this line or at this moment. Because then they could
Yep.
work with that. Then they have something to work with. They're like, oh, don't need it. Move on, right? And so like with Alejandro, I was like, ugh, I buzzed that shot. And I said, when we wrapped around here, I went this, and he's like, okay, play it back, played it back. I said, here's a moment. He's like, I'm not going to use this at that moment. We're fine. And then we moved on, right? But it's a hard thing to do because,
Sure.
it's Alejandro and, he, demands that, now he doesn't demand it. He expects that everyone like does their
On
thing
top of their
so
game,
that
right?
he can
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
yeah, so he can do his thing without having to worry about other stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
and,
And well,
and
one of the things that I've also always felt is that your job and my job, and all, and the dolly grip and the boom operator, I mean, all of our jobs is as tough as it is, and as maybe unfair, maybe that's the word, I don't know, is to nail it every time, because you don't know when the actor is going to hit that moment or going to have that one beautiful thing. And the last thing in the world you want to do is have them just hit that note and you aren't there, and that's always, that's the worst feeling in the world, right? uh,
yeah, I mean, just yesterday I had with Mike, with Bauman, like I had a shot that was, really difficult to act. The performer was moving a lot, and you know, it was it was a tough shot. And so, he's like, "Do you need more stop?" I'm like, "Yes, please." So, he gave me some more stop and I got it. And then at the end of the take, everyone like applauded for me. And I'm like, that's not good, right? So
yeah.
you do not want
You
to
know
be
what?
noticed. You don't want to get
Yeah.
applaud for just getting a shot sharp, because that's not a good thing. Like your job is just to make sure everything's in focus and just not be noticed. When you're noticed,
Yeah.
that's usually not a good thing.
Well, it sounds like it was
They
a
were
tough
also giving
shot.
me a
So
hard time. Like they were giving me a
I
hard
hear you.
time,
Yeah, of course.
and so,
Well, and by the
but
way, the reason that
still,
they are is because you're as good as you are. So if you weren't as good as you are, they probably wouldn't have done that. They probably would have like quietly like
no,
applauded. But there
no,
is one
maybe.
movie that I have to ask you about that it probably is not what you would think. You worked on George Lucas in Love.
Yes. Yes, I
for,
did.
for
And
most,
that
a
was
lot of
with the
people.
guys from USC, it was just us
Oh,
shooting
no
all this.
way.
Yeah, this is a bunch of guys from USC. They formed a company and all they did was just shoot shorts, quality filmed entertainment is what it was called.
That's
And
fantastic. So
and it
were
was
you all
and
in film school at the time? I mean, or in
I
college
think
at the time, or
I don't remember,
afterwards?
I think we had graduated by that point.
Okay. Yeah.
And like one of the things we did was just like, part of probably the most important thing from film school, like as someone who did not go to film school, is the people you come out of film school with. Like they're
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
tribe. They're your your boosters. You've got each other's backs. You're always doing stuff for each other. Like you don't make it in this business alone. Like I'm here because somebody gave me a chance.
Yep.
And I'm sure I screwed up, but they're like, no, try again. It's so we're all where we are because of somebody else.
Sure.
You do not make it in your business alone. And so, like, George Lucas in Love was just so much. We had so much fun. It's just
I can
like,
only imagine. I'm so glad to hear
it's
that,
so
because
great.
it's
Yeah.
I'm gonna post it on the page for this if people haven't seen it. But
Yeah,
if you haven't seen it, go
absolutely.
Google
Oh,
it and watch it.
yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
good, and it holds
Yeah.
up too, right?
Yeah. No, I love that. That was a big break for like Joe Nussbaum and,
Yeah.
you know, Eric Hayes shot it. Like it was, yeah. I love George Lucas. A lot of us love George Lucas enough. It was a great
Yeah. That
experience.
was fantastic. And the other thing I have to ask you about, and I didn't look this up, and your IMDb, it says that you're an actor in a Britney Spears video for Toxic.
Oh yes. So, so one of the weird things that's happened is that I have been cast as a Japanese. I'm Chinese by, heritage, but I've been
Okay.
cast as a Japanese businessman in like three different things. One
Oh,
was in Toxic in the Britney Spears video. There's a scene where she pulls the guy into the bathroom on the plane, and it cuts to a shot of a plane flying overhead Tokyo, and then there's a guy looking up at the
Mhm.
plane, and that's me looking up at the plane. I mean, and
That's
this is
great.
the fun thing about music videos is that you'll be called on to do whatever's required. Like if you look at the music video, she spills champagne in a guy's lap in the airplane. Like that's my lap because they just needed a lap. Like
And you were there.
I was on the insert unit, and they're like, "We need to spill champagne on somebody's lap," so they just got me a wardrobe. They just spilled it on my lap. It's like
That's great.
you
And
learn
what are
so
the other
much
two?
in the other two was there's this Oasis flavored water commercial that's called Rubber Duckzilla, and there is a topless shower scene in it when the rubber duck monster attacks Tokyo, and I
Of
basically
course.
have a shower scene, like a topless shower scene in
Great.
that one.
Excellent.
And that probably is the one thing that required the most acting for me. And then the last thing is on Formula One. Actually, there's a sequence in in a montage sequence where he goes through all the races, and there's a sequence in Suzuka in Japan where we ended up sending a crew, and I'm in a brief scene with Brad and Javier Bardem as a Japanese businessman in the Apex garage, and it's me, it's Emily, and like who else? Like Chad, Amon, and who else was it? I forgot who was in it. I got to look at it, but it
That's
was
great.
it was just like they're like, yeah, we need an Asian.
Yeah. Then you have to do
That is
that.
definitely probably the my qualifying my calling card is I'm the nearest
Well,
available Asian.
that's a lot of fun. I love that. That's really because I saw
Yeah.
that and I was like, wait a minute, and then it's so much more than what it was. Do you do you have do, have you gotten to the point where you stop sort of trying to figure out whether the movie's going to? I mean, you said about Judy, but whether the movie's going to be good or going to be bad based on what you're doing, or are you often wrong? I should ask.
Um, I don't. I've always had a good feeling about movies. Like when we did Life of Pi, like I
Yeah.
was, you know, everyone gave Claudio a hard time over like the visual effects thing. Like there were so many visual
Uh huh.
effects did he
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
deserve?
Yeah.
But we shot so much stuff that was not visual effects. That was just
Sure.
beautiful. And like I knew that Life of Pi would get nominated.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, for things like Top Gun and F1, like traditionally the Academy is like it's a action movie, like, what is cinematography? Is it lighting? Is it the camera?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if it's but the thing is like on Top Gun, the light, the stuff we lit also looks beautiful. And then you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
and Claudio is very much, you know, you look at the stuff he does, it looks right. It looks natural, right? It, it doesn't look lit. And so,
F1 looked beautiful, and all I kept thinking on F1 was, boy, like you're shooting in all these like gleaming white environments.
yeah.
I can't even imagine that, but
I
it
mean,
looked great. It looked
that was
amazing.
a tough thing. Like when you're shooting in the garage and looking out the garage and it's
Yeah.
sunny outside, like, I will say our garage was definitely the most well-lit garage of all the teams because like
Granted, of
you go
course.
in our
Yeah.
garage and the ambient light levels are like 5 times greater than the other garages because it's
Of
balanced for the
course.
outside.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what you got to do. That's what you can do when you can control it. So,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite? You have a favorite of your movies that you've worked on as far as the
I
finished
loved
product?
Life of Pi. I loved Life of
Life of
Pi
Pi.
because of the finished product, but also the
Yeah.
process, the journey of making it was incredible. Like in
Yeah.
terms of so that was 3D, and so we had the original Alexas on beta firmware. Um, like when it was hot, the fans just turned on in the middle of the take. There was no like fan control. we were shooting to codex towers. Each camera, so we had two cameras. They would each go to a codex tower. So we had
Oh
these
wow.
massive codex towers that were recording HD 422 ProRes, you
Wow.
know. And it's like and we had these huge paste 3D, rigs with huge front elements. And we're shooting a lot like the sinking of the Simpson was on stage. And they were blasting so much water on it, and we weren't allowed to get water on the front mirror. And so because we were in Taiwan, what I ended up doing is we bought two screw compressors, which are used to like fill diving tanks. So I
Oh,
got
okay.
two screw compressors, put them in line, and then ran like 4-inch hose to like a 1,500 liter holding tank, and then we had this huge hose going to the base of the crane that split into, I think we had two 18-inch air knives. And when we turned that thing on, the the crane grip would literally have to push the crane up because there was so much. It was like a rocket
Oh,
ship, so much
air was
downforce.
shooting it. Oh my
Air was
gosh.
shooting
Wow.
us. But the thing is, like, that
It
was
kept the
like
water
one of the
off.
first like crazy engineering things we had to do. We were literally plumbers
Oh,
on that
jeez.
show, and we built an air knife, and we had these two screw compressors running full speed to feed the air knives live every time we did a shot. And the
Wow.
plumbing was immense, and like we had, pipes, you know, whatever, not like hose running everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like we didn't have a choice. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
wanted that water to just come raining down like a storm of God on that ship, and we had to push through it to a close up, and it's 3D. You can't have water hit the mirror, so it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And so we
Oh,
just
that's amazing. And like you said, you didn't. This wasn't something you knew about ahead of time. I mean, obviously you knew about it before the day, but
we knew about it,
in
but
prep, you didn't. Did you know about it, or did you have
we
to
knew
deal with it
about
when
it.
you
We
got
had a
there?
plan, but
Yeah.
we
Oh,
didn't.
okay.
It's like, it would have been nice if they didn't aim the hoses right at the camera. But it was it was supposed to be insane, and so it's like
Yeah.
you had with Ritters blowing in every direction, you can't control anything, so it
Yep.
was just
Yep.
like the answer was sheer force. It's
That's
just like
fantastic.
sheer horsepower. And I learned so much on that, and also like shipping those things all around the world, because we were in Taiwan, we were in India, we went to
Oh wow.
Montreal.
Uh-huh.
And it was, you learn one of the things that is my forte with me and my team, like Max, my second, and like we are so experienced at shipping equipment around the world.
You
And
have to
Formula
be.
One, just, like Formula One, I was talking to our shipping coordinator the other day. He had to ship like 1,280 separate shipments. He had that many separate
Whoa.
shipments, of which camera, I'm sure we had three or four manifests per shipment, and you know, we must have had at least 50, 75 shipments on that show, just shipping around the world. We would,
Unbelievable.
in Vegas, we would shoot in Vegas, like wrap for like 4 or 5 hours, and then that stuff would go right on a plane right to Abu Dhabi, which is literally halfway around the world. And then, you literally fly halfway around the world, unload, and just go right at it. That's the schedule that Formula One does. Like,
Yeah.
and that was the first Vegas race. And, it's like to be in Vegas on for a night race, and then the next week have to be exactly on the opposite of the world time zone wise for, another race, which is like dusk to night. It would have been easier if it was like a day race, because then your
Yeah.
body clock would kind of, but you just like, but shipping, like I've learned a lot about shipping equipment around the world, and it's an interesting thing. But you get into the minutia of it. It is like,
Of course.
lithium, how can you pack lithium so it's not dangerous goods, and like how long it takes to get through customs, and the height clearance on certain planes. If you know what plane you're flying, you have to pack things a certain way so it fits in the plane.
Oh,
It's just these
jeez.
things that you just learn by doing.
But it's
And
also like, I mean, it fits perfectly into what our job is, which and makes it interesting, which is I don't know how to do this. Let's figure out how to do this.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And my girls are always like, "How do you know how to do that?" And I'm like, "I'm sure it's because of some job I had to do that I had to learn it."
Yep,
And it's like,
exactly. Or if not, I'm used to figuring stuff out. So we'll figure this out. We'll backwards engineer
yeah,
it and we'll just make it work.
yep,
That's yeah,
exactly.
that's truly the interesting part. You've reached a point in your career where you've been doing this for a while, you're well known, you're clearly confident of what you can do and what your job is. And you're working on really high level stuff. And I'm just wondering, do you still get nervous when you start a job?
Um, yeah, you're right in the fact that how much experience you've had really makes a difference in how nervous you get because, it's like I, I'm sure you've experienced this too. Like I've been yelled at by the most
No, no.
legendary yellers. I've made, probably mistakes in front of you know, the people you most don't want to make mistakes in front of.
Oh yeah.
So for me, it's like I've I don't get nervous so much because I've made mistakes in the worst, in spots to make a mistake. And, I have just been open and honest and like owned my mistakes.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I've learned that those who really are the best will just say, okay, then let's just get it done and move on and you get it done. So like
Copy.
for me, like I would probably more be worried about someone throwing a fit at me making a mistake from someone who's not as experienced than from
Interesting.
those
Yeah,
who
yeah,
are.
yeah.
So so it's like trial by fire. Like I've been through the fire. Now it's like really
Yeah.
how much worse can it get than what I've been through already?
Sure, sure.
And the other thing is like I have a great crew. Again, it's like, do I get nervous? No, but do we worry that sometimes it's going to be tough? Sure, all the time. And then my, the crew, you know, pulls together and gets it done. Like on a movie like Formula One, right? It's
Mhm.
all about the crew. Like Claudio's on top, and he trusts me, and he tells me his vision. And Claudio has this endless optimism that anything is doable.
Yeah, that's great.
Like what exists is not a factor in if something is doable or not.
I love that.
And that is just amazing. Like, someone's like worried, like, oh, can you handle this camera? It's like, I probably could handle a camera that hasn't been invented yet. That's like what we do. We just
Yeah,
make things to
yeah.
work. And then like even the operators like Lukash and Natasha on an F1, we just handed them these knobs and we're like, okay, here's how you operate. And they're like, okay. And they figured it out. And then they, gave us their feedback and they gave us great feedback so that, our film could like make the products better, right? So
Sure.
they're not afraid to just say like this sucks, They're like, no, let's make it work.
Hmm.
Max, my second, who I've done so much together with, like we have a shorthand. Like as long as Max is on the job, I know we can get through it.
That's great.
And like especially on F1, and then when you travel, like if you're lucky to get an amazing crew overseas like Russ and Ben, my A seconds in the UK, they just like took the reins and went with it. The central loaders, Maggie, Georgina, like the logistics of the show would never have happened with them. The other first, Dave, Ollie, Dermot, Dan, Mateo, and Bob in the US, everyone just did what it took to get it done. They saw the schedule. They're like, we have to be here then. Like, I did not have to micromanage. Everyone just did what needed to be done. And along with like Damo, Rich, all our seconds, our trainees, Mo and Anna, like everyone did what it took. So you're only as good as your crew. And, we had the best crew. And so that's what made F1 successful.
Yeah.
And was I stressed? I mean, yeah, I'm sure I was, but, was I nervous? Not so much, because it's like, you're not on your own. Right. So, you have a support group, we all get together and support each other and worry together, but that it's not like I get nervous about it. And also maybe it's like the engineering side of me, where it's like it's going to get done
Yeah.
because we have no choice, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. It has to. We just don't know how it's going to, but it
Yeah,
has to.
exactly. Just because we don't know how it's going to get done doesn't mean it's not going to get done, because it has to get done.
Do you find when you have a crew like that, that you trust? I think that's the word sort of that I'm hearing. That it's like everybody has their ups and their down days, and everybody knows that. So like everybody else just sort of picks them up and fills in the gaps, kind of thing.
Right. Because, like, one thing Ben, our UPM, I was talking to him about is like, I can't be the only one with knowledge on these cameras. We have to bring people in. We need to have depth so that, we can be flexible. Because sometimes we were rigging 4 cars and we need to
Yeah.
shift our crews to the garages, and we weren't shooting as much with the Venices. And sometimes we'd have to, like, you would have to dynamically, balance where your labor was going, or where
Yeah.
everyone had to go. So by having depth, it's like if someone got sick, we knew that someone could step up. Like if it was just me, then I would be stressed, because like if I got sick, I'd be like, oh no, now what? It's like, so knowledge is power, but sharing knowledge is what makes a show go smoothly. There's some people like learn something or figure something out and they try to keep it for themselves, because, there is a job security aspect to it. There is like a leg up if you know something someone else doesn't. But my attitude has always been share freely, take feedback openly, because what works for me, somebody might have a great idea for making it better. And it's like, it's not about like it being my invention. It's about something that works great for everyone. And I
That's
don't know what I don't know what that has to do without being nervous or not, but it's kind of the philosophy where it's like, we're a clan of filmmakers, and the best ones are always have each other's back and make sure whatever needs to get done gets done.
Well, Dan, this has been fantastic. You have so much great information and such an interesting career, and I mean, it's more ahead of you clearly. I'm going to leave you with the question that I leave everybody with, and you can take us out. Advice for someone getting into the business on how to succeed, or if you'd rather something you now know that helps you, that you wish you knew earlier on.
I mean, part of starting is there's so much to learn. So, say you want to be in the camera department and you show up in your camera PA on a show. Invariably, one thing you're going to be asked is to do an incredibly complicated coffee order, right? And I have to tell you, like, it happened to me, and it will happen to, people who work for us, but it's for a reason, because that is a test before we trust you with like getting the right film stock, getting the right filter, getting the right lens. Like we need to know that you can take a lot of detail and get it exactly right. Because if you decide to like, oh, I need, this, I need the whatever, the 500 tungsten, 600-foot short end in this mag, it's like as a loader, if like you have to get all the things right. You can't just like, oh, I forgot the oat milk. It's full fat, and so like the operator's like flatulent for the rest of the day. It's like that's the cheapest cost, right? The worst cost is like you put the wrong film stock in, and then we shoot it on the wrong film stock. It's like you've details are important, number one. So no matter what you're asked to do it with enthusiasm and do it with like the care that you would do anything else, like you were like trying to save the world, because that shows who you are to the crew. And and it's like at this point in my career, attitude is everything else. Like I would rather have someone who maybe has less experience but is so eager and so positive and open to learn than someone who shows up and says, I've done this before, I know what I'm doing, like, like I did this because I learned, this is how I do it, right? It's like one of the best things I ever did learning to be a good A camera focus puller was doing a lot of B camera for a lot of different crews. Like there was a period of time where I worked with like 4 or 5 different DPs as a B camera first, and I got to watch the best A camera first in the business. Like John Connor was probably the most influential first AC for me. And just working as a focus for like David Eubanks, working for David, working for all these people, you learn, you watch them do their jobs and you learn like, oh, there are different ways to do the same thing. And these are how all these people do it. And this is why they do it. And they all are right? And so, the depth of knowledge you gain by being a B camera is you learn how everyone runs their department. You learn based on your personality, like, oh, I could never do it that way. But you learn other things that you would do, and you kind of form how you are going to be as a head of department based on the influences of everyone else. And so, it is very comfortable to fall into a bunch of people that you like and work with, but going off and spreading your wing, like don't put all your eggs in one basket. You you will only benefit yourself by meeting more people and learning even how to do the same tasks from different people, because like the way I approach a shot, and sometimes I drive my second AC nuts because we'll do a shot and then I'll be like, you know what, this time I'm gonna just be off the monitor and stand over there and do it. And just because I wanted to like practice the different techniques and and it's so important to have a wide view, because like how I do my job is also influenced on not what's easy for me, but what's best for the still photographer, what's best for the operator, what's best for the boom operator, like not getting in the DP's light. The actor wants their eye line clear, the director, doesn't want whatever, like he wants a certain vibe on set. Like being aware of how everyone does their job and what they need to do their job makes you better at your job, because it's a team effort. And so if you're out there doing your thing without care about how anyone else needs to get their stuff done, you're not necessarily, maybe you're doing best what's for your job, but you're not necessarily doing what's best for the project as a whole. And so it even goes to that with like how we, interact with a production office, and also like things like shipping. Like you depend on the production office for so much. Like your relationship with them is so important. Your relationship with your crew, your relationship with other departments, you're all in it together. So, show up with a good attitude and an open mind, willingness to learn. Like I still learn something new every day. Like the moment you decide to stop learning is the moment you're done, in my opinion. Like I have a list of things I want to figure out in this. I have this book. So this is like my third book. And in this book is every single thing that happens on set. So if I open to a random page, March 14th, it has, I have to do an FX6 CAD drawing. I need to get the RCP. I need to get figure out a DJI small camera, and then here's a camera order 316. I need 3 cameras. I need to run 2, run in 4D, and need a Moses, and this is from Formula One. So like, it's like I have, but it helps because what happened on Top Gun was we had to ship a package out to a carrier, and they're like, we need to know exactly how much it weighs. Well, it turns out like the year before, Max and I did a Navy commercial where we had to do the same thing. So I went to my book and there was the list, every single piece of gear, the weight of every case. Like I could pull this out and be like, hey, this is the amount of cases, this is exact weight. And, it's like everything you do is built on something you've done before. And, but you can, each time you do it, you add to it. And I don't know, you just be always willing to learn. Like, I don't know everything. I know a lot, but there's so much more I don't know. And so just I think that's really all I have to say.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.